When it comes to all things green, it would appear that the left are simply obsessed with it. And there is no one more obsessed than the Ontario Liberal government, who is banking on its Green Energy Act. And of course, it's being rammed down all of our throats, even though it doesn't make sense, and it's not working. And their latest boondoggle is a whopper, trapping Ontario Hydro customers into $1 billion. Lori Goldstein is almost choking on it now. I'll let you get a drink if you need it. Okay. Nonetheless, so you write, and it was certainly an article that caught my eye over the weekend because I just opened my hydro bill, and it's not going down. But nonetheless, a report surfacing exposing that Premier Wynne's government paid $1 billion more for electricity than the market value of the power.
In 1 month, in October.
When did this happen, and why are we only hearing about it now?
Well, it's been going on all along. I'm indebted on this one to Parker Gallant, who has been a Sun News Network contributor. He's a former banker, and the great thing is that he can read government numbers and tell you what they really mean. And another fellow named Scott Luft, who he worked with, and they produced a report for Wind Concerns Ontario, which is an anti-turbine group. And the headline was that for the first time ever in Ontario, in 1 month, which was October, the government spent $1 billion more for electricity in all its forms than the market value. So why is that happening? Well, to be fair, this happens all the time because you can't just have a system that only meets peak capacity and has no more, because peak capacity changes. You don't always need the same amount of power at the same, so you have to have a built-in extra. But what the Liberals have done is created a totally unnecessary aberration in what would be the normal functioning of this market. And that's wind, solar, and biomass power. Unreliable, the most expensive. We have to take it from the people who supply it to us first. Yeah. Right? So when you have to take the most expensive power first, right, and tell lower cost producers, don't give us power, right? And then you have to pay those lower cost producers not to pay, and then go back to the wind and solar people and saying, oh, we don't need as much power from you as we have to buy. So, in addition to us paying you for this unreliable, inefficient, expensive power that we give you first, compared to everybody else, when we tell you that we don't need all that much, then we'll pay you for that too.
And of course, we're only using it because the optics are cool and it's the in thing to do right now. Well, I mean, this is not, we don't need to run Ontario on these things. We've got enough efficient energy in this province that we don't need any of that, and it's clean.
Not only that, like their argument is that they needed wind and solar to close the coal plants, and they still said it's an absolute falsehood. And the simplest way to show it's a falsehood is that in 2003, when the Ontario Liberals came to power, coal-fired electricity provided 25% of Ontario's energy needs. They just bragged recently that they had promised to close it in 2007, but they finally closed it in 2014. Yeah. And what is wind and solar? By Al Gore. And what is wind and solar power producing? 4% of our energy needs. So how can you possibly replace 25% of our energy needs with 4%? They didn't do that. The real way they replaced coal was with nuclear and natural gas. And remember all those gas plants they built, including the two that they canceled that cost us another $1 billion, right? So the problem we're having right now is that it's not always $1 billion, that's so-called global adjustment. Everything is, you don't see it on your bill. What happened last month alone will be another $30 on our bill.
For how long?
In November. Well, you know.
For 1 month?
How long does it take?
12 months?
Well, the global adjustment goes over a year, right? There'll be times when we lose a lot of money. There'll be times when we make a little money. But what you can say, because what the government has admitted to is that our rates are going up 42% over 5 years. And the Auditor General in late 2011 said, using the government's own numbers, 56% of those increases will be because of wind and solar and biomass.
Right.
So in other words, look, hydro rates were going to go up anyway. You have to maintain the system. There's been a lot of problems in hydro. They inherited a mess, but they put this mess on steroids.
But they've had 13 years to correct this mess.
And what you can say is that every time you see that bill go up, right? If it's terms of the cost of power, because remember, there are other things too. There are regulatory charges. There's the debt retirement charge, where we've paid more than enough to repay the old Ontario Hydro debt. But they took that money that was supposed to be for the old Ontario Hydro debt, put it elsewhere. So we're still paying on this debt that we should have paid by now. And also, remember simple things. When they brought in the HST, 8%. Electricity costs 8% more because of that.
So clearly, like, you're listening. I mean, my blood gets boiling when I read about this, and I hear about it so much. But I'm just wondering, at what point does anyone scream and shout? When do I start seeing this headline blasting in the media? When do you see the pitchforks and the rioters up at Queen's Park saying, like, enough? It just baffles. Like, put the $1 billion gas plant that we'll never know, because they're not even calling the two most important witnesses. So we may not ever know if someone broke the law by going into the building and erasing hard drives. We just may never know.
Well, the OPP is investigating that, but of course the OPP union is pro-liberal, so who knows what's going to happen there.
Right. And so when is it that we're going to get some accountability here? Are we going to need another ombudsman report, another?
Well, if I was going to look, they won an election. Liberals won a majority. It wasn't a sneak attack. They won in June. But if I was saying, what's one thing that we can demand right now of this government that would help us? Yeah. It's stop building more and more wind and solar.
But you know that's not going to happen, Lori.
They want to triple it.
Of course they do.
They want to triple it. So, I mean, look, to me, I believe in democracy. I believe in explaining things to people, and then people will make a choice. What I can tell you is that the emails I get, for example, from seniors who are on fixed incomes, who are just being, and many of them who are on electric, they use electricity. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It puts the lie to everything about this government, that it claims to care about the elderly and the poor and people on fixed incomes.
Because we're going through another polar vortex, according to the weather. It's going to be a very cold,
it's called winter.
Tough winter.
Yeah, and also the high energy prices are not the only reason, but they're contributing to the downsizing of the manufacturing sector. Yeah. I guess the biggest thing I would say here is that this is a government that, without knowing what it was doing, has doomed us to years of unnecessary spending of $1 billion, not just on the idea of the cost of electricity, but they could have done what they wanted, which was to end coal without ever embarking this on all. You use nuclear and natural gas, the emissions would have not have been a problem. But this is a classic case of government. They can't admit they're wrong anymore. So they double down and double down and double down.
Who's demanding, outside of someone like you, or who's demanding that they admit that they're wrong? You know, the opposition's useless on both sides. No one is holding, it's the media's job to hold these people to account. And you know what we're doing? We're doing nothing. The media is not doing its job.
Well, I think what's happening is that, I mean, if you want to raise this stuff in the House, you can. There's plenty of evidence. But I think the Tories, it should be for both parties, because the NDP, its poor people are getting massacred. But you know what it is? They're afraid. They're afraid because McGuinty and Wynne got the endorsement from Al Gore. Yeah. And so they're afraid when they stand up and start questioning this, they're going to say, and you would have kept the coal plants open and killed babies. Yeah. And, you know, and what you have to do when somebody says that is, I would say, with respect, Minister, stop misleading the House.
Well, you would say that. You know, I'd say stop,
and then I'd be thrown out.
Lying.
Yeah,
just
well, you can't. Then you get thrown out, right?
Yeah, that's fine. At least you're making a lot of noise as you
But the thing you have to do is stay calm and keep, but you have to have the will to do it. Yeah. And I don't sense any will in the opposition parties. And it's a shame. This is monetarily their biggest scandal. Yeah. Bar none.
I agree with you on that, and I think the Green Energy Act in time will be exposed to be the biggest fraud scheme, you name it. And I think we'll say we can.
Remember, green energy also led to the gas plant scandal directly.
It did. Yep. Just never stops. Anyway.